Every so often, you run into an obnoxious person, and I've run into many of them in my life. And the worst thing about some obnoxious people are you find out they're Christians. And you go, what? No. And they actually, the more obnoxious people you get, sometimes they're more vocal about your faith and their faith. And you just want to tell them, will you just, no, don't tell people that. You know, work on your life a little bit, and then you can maybe tell others. I remember I worked at a AMP grocery store, and this one guy, he was just so obnoxious, like, always pointing out people's faults, like, you're wrong there, you're wrong there. And then one time, you're a Christian, and he said, the Pope is the Antichrist, and he was like saying this really loud, and I said, no, no, he is not. And I remember actually telling him, could you maybe just like dial down the whole, sharing your faith thing. He says, why, are you one of those Christians? No, you're one of those Christians. Anyway, so the idea is, how can we as believers actually live out our faith? And we start off this series saying the best way to tell others really about our faith is our own transformation. As we are transformed in the peace that God gives us, the joy of knowing Him, the gentleness that comes through His love through us, it is one of the strongest witnesses that we have. And those who are leaders, I can't help but get this in because leadership training is this afternoon. The best gift a leader can give to their people is a great them. I know I need to keep my life in order. I need to draw close to God. And so one of the best gifts I can give to you is a pastor that actually walks with God. I have to realize that my ministry is an overflow of my daily relationship with God. Just a little Bible verse for that. Somebody mentioned this, another pastor mentioned, so I'm going to stick this in early. Revelations 12:11. It says, they have defeated him by the blood of the Lamb and by their testimony. In other words, how can you fight the battle out there? It's through Jesus and what He's done to you, but also your own life shines as a testimony. They did not love their lives so much as they were afraid to die. In other words, it wasn't about them. They were able to give up their own life. So we started a series called Refocus. And at the whole idea, how can we refocus the way we see things to actually treat people as better, as to walk through this life, being transformed ourselves, helping and loving others around us. So we came up with this phrase that actually C.S. Lewis did, and he said, you just need to think about yourself less. It's not about how wonderful you are and how much you can do for others. You just tend to think about yourself less. Paul in 1 Corinthians 4 said this, I have a low opinion of your opinion of me. Ha. You can think about anything you want. Isn't that good? I've been around those kind of people. Yeah. But he also said, he said, I have a low opinion of my opinion of me. He said, I don't even count my own opinion because guess what? There's only one really opinion that counts. It's what God thinks about me. And you know what God says about me? He says He loves me. He says I'm His child. He says I'm forgiven, I'm secure, I'm accepted. I don't have to impress anyone. And so we said last week, Paul didn't let his sin get attached to his identity. He says, I am a mess. That's not really who I am. He didn't let his accomplishments get attached to his identity. I am glorious. I've changed the world. Yeah, I guess so. God did it through me. He got off the hot air balloon of this self-esteem game. He needed to be pumped up by others. And or if he didn't hear the praise enough, he just got very low. And he had that audience of one. He just understood there's an audience of one. When I was in my younger years, I know you can't picture it now, I was a diver. I was in a diving club, and we would practice on trampolines through the year. In the summer, we'd go out in competitions. I was in the Ontario finals for diving. I think I scored I was 13th or something. Anyway, solid finish. But anyway, there's something about being a diver which is interesting. You go off the board, you do whatever you do. You do your flips and twists, you hit the water, and you think it was good. You don't know. You thought it was good, and you pop your head up, and people are clapping, or there's not very much clap. But you don't care. The moment you pop your head up, you're looking at the judges. There's 3 judges. They're all holding up scorecards. By the time you hit the water, come out of the water, they have the numbers up. And so there's only one thing you're worried about, what thing you're thinking about. I think I got that right. I don't know if I got that right. Did I land right? But you just boom, boom. And this is what we do as believers. We just say, God, how am I doing, Daddy? You know, if somebody encourages you with your accomplishments, you say thanks. Thank you very much. That's a wonderful thing. But then you talk to your daddy and say, Daddy, was I faithful to you? And if you hear the well done, that's what counts. If somebody's critical to you, you did this and this and this wrong. This is what you say, wow, thank you so much. I'm going to take that to my daddy. I'm going to ask him. Because he's the really one that counts. And so it takes away the sting. It takes away the pride. There is this refocusing of who I am. So I can focus on others by God's direction. Just to think of myself less. So we're going to run this through over the next few weeks, several qualities. And we're going to look at some qualities that maybe we don't look at normally as a church. And we're going to jump into one, the story of the life of Abraham. So Abraham lived a very long time ago. His story is found in Genesis chapter 18. If you are a student of the Bible and love to read along with us. Abraham at this time was rich. He had hundreds of people working for him. He had servants. He had a conglomerations, almost like a tent city it would be. This is not a single man. This is like just a whole community around. He was able to raise an army and chase down 3 other kings just by the servants that he had with him. And this is what happened. Genesis chapter 18, verses 1 to 7. One day, Abraham was sitting, I keep on forgetting this. As a tradition here at Church on the Rock, the bolded parts we all read out loud together. So I invite you to do that. One day, Abraham was sitting at the entrance to his tent during the hottest part of the day. He looked up and noticed 3 men standing nearby. And when he saw them, he ran to meet them and welcomed them, bowing low to the ground. My Lord, he said, if it pleases you, stop here for a while. Rest in the shade of this tree while water is brought to wash your feet, since you have honored your servant with this visit. Please let me prepare some food to refresh you before you can continue on your journey. All right, they said, do as you've said. So Abraham ran back to his tent and said to Sarah, hurry, get 3 large measures of your best flour. Knead it into dough and bake it some bread. And then Abraham ran out to the herd and chose a tender calf and gave it to his servants who quickly prepared it. That's our story for today. Notice all the running. Notice all the honoring. Notice the best. What was happening at this moment was something that happens in the Middle East. But it was particularly emphasized here in Abraham's life. He was treating strangers as honored guests. He was treating strangers as honored guests. Abraham felt honored himself that a stranger would come near. Isn't that weird? Instead of being bothered by it, going, oh, here they come, we're going to have to make some food. Hey, honey, do you have some mac and cheese? Okay, can you throw it in the microwave? He was like, strangers are here, people we don't know. This is an honor that you're honoring me to come here? Woo! Kill the fatted calf. Woohoo! Let's bring it on. It was so important. It was written into the law of the Old Testament. In Leviticus 19, 33 to 34, it says, when strangers sojourn in your land, you shall do them no wrong. It would be easy in that culture because there's families and clans and towns and tribes that they can be very insular, very looking at each other, insider focused. And so the law said, listen, when a stranger sojourns with you in your land, comes and travels with you, you shall not do them wrong. Do not mistreat them. Strangers who sojourn with you shall be to you as the native among you, and you shall love them as yourself. For you were strangers in the land of Egypt. I am the Lord your God. They are treating strangers as honored guests. Actually, when Job was protesting against his sickness to God, and we're allowed to protest to God, by the way, go ahead. I double dog dare you. If there's problems, talk to him about it. He's the one that you should be talking to. Job called out and he said, Listen, he said, the sojourner has not lodged in the street. I have opened my door to the wayfarer. He said, listen, God, treat me with kindness. Why? Because I've opened my door to others. The New Testament goes beyond that. And in 1 Peter chapter 4, Peter, that's the disciple of Jesus, said this, the end of all things is near. So there's an urgency to our lives. Be alert and sober of mind so you may know how to pray. We talk about this at Church on the Rock. The idea is as you pray, you listen. If you're on your way to God, if you're not used to this, it's not that we're losing our minds. We believe and have experienced that when we pray and are silent and listen, that we get taps on the shoulders. They're not an audible voice, but it's just an idea. It's just a prompt that prompts us how to pray. And the miracles that have come out of that are just endless. So it says here, be alert and sober of mind that you may know how to pray, so that he might tap you. Above all, love each other deeply. Isn't that awesome? Christians, this is what we're all about. We're supposed to be loving each other deeply. And I've experienced that my whole life with you all. People coming over, cutting my lawn. Somebody raked my leaves last week. I can't believe it. Thank you. Thank you, Church on the Rock. There is a love that comes and flows between us in community. So above all else, love each other deeply, because love covers a multitude of sins. If you're on your way, if you're not used to the whole Christian community, you always think we try and point out people's sins. Guess what happens? There's supposed to be so much love in this community, we go, it's okay. I don't need to bring that up. I don't need to be irritated by that, because my love for you just covers over just a multitude of sins. And it says this, offer hospitality to one another. That adds a little caveat, without grumbling. Isn't that awesome? I love how specific it is. Why? How can we do this? Why? Because we are thinking about ourselves less. I'm not just thinking about, how much food I have. I'm just not thinking about myself. I'm actually thinking about the stranger. They're hungry. Wow, they must need something. I'm not thinking about, wow, my place is a mess. By the way, go to my basement. It is a disaster zone, and it's my fault, not Helen's fault. It totally is. But the deal is, that's secondary, because I'm thinking about myself less. I'm just thinking about them. They need a meal. They need a place to be. Isn't that beautiful? There's another list. That goes on of the Refocus list. I love these. I call them Refocus lists. Romans 12 to 14. It says, be joyful in hope. Hope is that anticipation of what God will do. Patient in affliction. Isn't that awesome? That he doesn't take the affliction away. I don't hear any amens on that one. Faithful in prayer. That one, I got to keep coming back to that. Share with the Lord's people who are in need. That's that community. If you step into community here, we will be sharing with you in need. We spill out to the world, that's for sure. But guess what? We make sure this is a community that we can share in need. Practice hospitality. There it is. Bless those who persecute you. Bless and do not curse. That actual word that says practice hospitality is in a continuous action. So it's like pursue hospitality. Keep running after it. So it's not just at Thanksgiving and Christmas. It's something that's a constant attitude where you go in, as you're thinking about yourself less, you've got the view. Is there a stranger here that could be treated as an honored guest? Is there a stranger here that could be treated as an honored guest? You know, it's difficult, isn't it? There are difficulties, and I've heard lots of excuses. Guess where I hear most excuses? From myself. Mainly because I'm an introvert, and I like my alone time. I love to have cushions around my life. I just am. So I hear these things. There's difficulties. I'm not a friendly person, Dave. I'm just not a friendly person. And they'll say it very unfriendly, like. I just look in the Bible. It says actually it's a requirement of an elder to be hospitable. Isn't that wild? Not because you have a gift or because you're a friendly person, but because if you're a leader, guess what? Leaders think about themselves less, and so they're hospitable. I don't even have a house. I'm off the hook. Yeah, I don't have a house. Okay, students? It's about treating strangers as honored guests. It's not really about having a house or a place. Well, I'm already very friendly to my friends. We've heard what Wayne has talked to us about that. There has been years that church people and churchy people have been catching up with each other and loving each other very strongly, but not to the stranger who comes in. I remember going to visit, I did a wedding for my nephew in L.A., and first time in L.A., and my flight was pushed off to Monday, so I had all Sunday there. I know nobody resonates with this at all, but I'm a pastor, and I'm just like, I'm in L.A., I get to see churches. And so I went on a church hop. I got to get in 6 services in one day. It was amazing. First one, 7 o'clock in the morning. I did not sleep through Calvary Chapel. Almost made it through. Went to Saddleback. That was pretty cool. Went to a place called Mariners. I eventually went to this place called Erwin McManus's church. I loved it. So cool because I listened to all his podcasts, and he is just such a cool communicator. And he's got this whole church of 20-somethings, and they're young, and they're hip, and I'm thinking, I'm the old curmudgeon, but I'm going to get in there, and I'm going to, pretend, right? I got my best, whatever, my plaid shirt on to try and fit in. So I'm there, right? I'm there. I told somebody I was going to bring it up again in this sermon. So I'm there, and there's these circles of 20-somethings, circles. Literally, it looked like somebody had herded them into these circles. And they're all talking and having fun. And I was like, how do I break in? I'm old. But I am bold, and this is my only time in L.A. I walk into one circle, I said, hi, I'm new. I tried the subtle approach. And they looked at me and they said, the pastor's over there. Ouch. Okay. Not cool enough. So I go over to the pastors and they're busy working on the sermon. I know what that's like. The service, they're trying to figure it all out. So I said, I know what? I'm going to sit down. And there'll be a flood of people that come by and say, hey, what's your name? I don't think I've met you before. Are you new here? Wow, welcome, welcome. And I could ask questions about it. I sat there. The whole place was empty. I was the only person sitting there because they all had their circles, their herd circles. And I didn't get said hi to. It's interesting. Although the pastor was an amazing communicator, if I lived in L.A., I would not go to that church. There's something about being welcomed as a stranger. There's this thing about churchy people. Churchy people like to be a part of the herd. And I'm glad Church on the Rock is not filled with churchy people. Thank you. I'm not sure if they just don't feel welcomed here or not. But the deal is, we are welcoming people. I'm so glad we're not filled with that churchy people that only insiders count. We are an outsider. Welcome, come on in. See, there is something else in the Bible that a lot of people don't realize. There's a secret blessing for those who are hospitable. There's a secret blessing. Jesus sent out his first missionaries as homeless people. Isn't that weird? He did not actually send them out to go, hey, can you stay at this person's house, this person? In fact, he said, don't take any money with you. Whoa, thanks, Jesus. Are we supposed to fast this whole time? No, don't take even a traveling bag. Don't take a walking stick. Just walk into a town as homeless people. And here's the cool thing. If you read this, it's in your small group notes. If small groups want to talk about it, they can. The idea is if they are welcomed, if somebody says, do you need a place to stay? Then guess what? They're then to preach the good news. Not only are they supposed to preach the good news, but they leave a blessing on that house. If no one says, come on in, they just they sort of shake the dust off, move to the next town. There's a blessing that you receive as you are hospitable. In fact, when Jesus says at the end, as we are standing before the judgment seat, there are some people that are going to say, God, you say that we showed you hospitality? When did we ever show you hospitality? And he would say, when you did that to one of my least brothers and sisters, when you showed it to them, you actually were showing it to me. So as we treat strangers as honored guests, in a way, we're actually treating Jesus that way. And then this weird, interesting verse in Hebrews chapter 13, 1-2. It says, keep loving each other as brothers and sisters. By the way, if you're not used to the Bible, do you realize how much community love that happens here? Just putting it in there, all right? Hebrews 13, 1-2. Keep loving each other as brothers and sisters. Here we go. Don't forget to show hospitality to strangers. For some have done this and have entertained angels without realizing it. Really? Want to go out to Starbucks? Yeah, I'll treat you to, chai latte thing. Just treating a stranger as an honored guest. And guess what? Wow, I just haven't seen him, but somehow I'm strangely blessed by that. Abraham saw and thanked his visitors. It turned out they were angels, but he gave before he even knew. I think one of the things that holds us back is that we think we need to be Martha. We need to be Martha Stewart. And I just saw everybody think, but they can't come into my house. They can't come into my car unless it's pristine, it's beautiful. So I was doing sermon research on Martha Stewart's website. That was just weird. Can I just say that was just a weird world out there. I found out I could make hedgehogs this season because guess what? Hedgehogs are in this season with pine cones. And you shave them off, and I'm going, really? You have how much time to do this? You do not need to be Martha Stewart in this, all right? You just give whatever you can. You give just your best. It's interesting that they named Martha Stewart Martha. Those who know the Bible, there is another story about Martha, Mary and Martha, isn't there? That's an insight you didn't think of. Yeah. Let me tell you about a journey that Helen and I had. We were Saul's daughter. So we were flying off to a missionary opportunity in the South Pacific. And I won't tell you where. But we had a very long stopover in Vancouver. And again, the stopover was on a Sunday, and I need to visit a church on a Sunday because I want to steal as many of their ideas as I can in God's love. So we're sitting there. We have all our carry-on luggage, and we go and walk a long ways. We're off the tram in Vancouver, and we had a church that was recommended to us. So we get in there with all our carry-on luggage, just like really weird. And it was maybe not the friendliest church. I won't tell you that whole aspect of it. I won't tell you all that aspect of it. But as we're sitting there and we're just looking at, oh, wow, Helen and I going, wow, yeah, we could try that. How about that? This one woman comes up to us and says, don't mean to tell you, we don't have a homeless shelter here. We had all our bags with us. Maybe my hair wasn't combed right. I don't know. I said, no, we're on a flight. And so she then opened up and said, well, do you have a place to go for lunch? And I'm thinking, yes, I heard about this really cool place that had crepes down this, and I just want to hit a Vancouver crepe place. And I was thinking that inside, the inside voice, until Helen said, no, we don't have a place. But what a blessing. She packed us in her little car and took us to a place where she has social assistance housing. It's one room, just one room, that's it. And she didn't have much. She said, I don't really have much food. I have eggs and toast. How about that? So she cooked us eggs and toast, and she just spilled out stories about what God was doing for her. She was a widow. And then she found out that we liked to journal, and so she gave Helen a journal. And she said, Dave, look around here. Take anything you want. My house is like 3 times that size, right? And I've got more junk I'm throwing away. But I felt strangely blessed by eggs and toast, by somebody who treated a stranger as an honored guest. It was not crepes. The crepes were nothing. It was about the person. It's about the person, not the program. I think we just need to refocus. Can we come in and refocus here at church as you go to those who need to feel at home somewhere? Not to feel better about yourself, not so that you can be accepted, so you can compare yourself to other people. They threw that kind of party. I'm going to throw this kind of. No. It's a refocus to say, God, I am loved. I'm a chosen child. You give me security. You lavish your love on me. God, thank you. Who can I lavish love on? And there's strangers that walk in that might need some help. And so it's not because I'm getting goodie points in heaven. I get no goodie points in heaven for this. It's because you first love me, and so I love others. And it's exciting. And it's like Abraham seeing somebody going, I get to honor somebody. Thank you for letting me do this. And we get strangely blessed in return. We just have to think of ourselves less. We have to think about how wonderful our house is. Less. We have to think about all our time that we need. Less. We just have to think about, but I'm not kind. Less. We just need to treat strangers as honored guests. Daddy, would you like me to do this? Amen. I will follow you. I'm going to ask our worship team to come on up. And I'm just going to go over how at Church on the Rock this last month, I've heard stories of how you all have treated strangers as honored guests. I got an email back from one of our welcome. It was a first-time guest, and they came in, and they said, Dave, it was amazing. Somebody in the front hallway came and just asked me how I was doing. And it felt like I was at home here at the front hallway. Then they came and passed us off to another couple, and the young couple said, hey, can we sit with you? And if you have any questions, we'll talk to you through the whole service. That was treating strangers as honored guests. I heard about a mentoring pair of a man that is mentoring a young man here at Church on the Rock, and they went down to downtown Hamilton, bought some $5 Tim cards, and went and talked to some of our homeless people here in Hamilton. And as they stopped, and they said, hey, can you spare $1? Actually, I can spare $5. Maybe you can get a couple coffees with it. Would you mind if we prayed with you? And so the mentor and the mentee went and prayed with the homeless of Hamilton, handing out Tim cards. Was that hospitality? Yes, they are treating strangers as honored guests. I remember one of our people we love so much, what came in as an atheist, saying that I can't believe that they're actually coming to church. They had gone through health problems, and so they came in there and sat in their car and not even realizing whether they even wanted to darken the door of a church because lightning bolts might come down. Somebody went and knocked on their window and said, come on in. They introduced them to somebody else who took them to coffee. Somebody else took them to lunch the next week. And that is Church on the Rock. There's a Redeemer student that needed a health appointment. And she has no family in this area. So she contacted me. We just put it out there to see if anybody here could do that. And guess what? We had multiple people saying, can we help? Can we drive her? Can I take off my afternoon to drive this young Redeemer student for her health appointment? That was treating a stranger as an honored guest. We ran into this young lady from China. Her name is Yaru. She's on the way to God. She's not there. We found out she has to stay in Canada over Christmas. Helen's invited her to our Christmas supper. That's just treating strangers as honored guests. It's not because we're better than anyone else, but because God's love has lavished on me. I refocus. Say, God, how can I do this? As we go and pray, I'm just going to let you know how the rest of the service goes. If you're on your way to God, if you have never really made a personal commitment to God, this is really what this church is about. It's not about going to church. It's about knowing God personally. We believe He died and rose again to remove my sins, to make a whole nother relationship with Him. And so because of that, at a time in my life, I said, yes, I admit I've messed. I'm a mess. I'll admit it. I admit my sin. God, I easily do. But I believe You died and rose again to remove that sin. I just commit my life to You, and that entered me into a whole other relationship with Him. This is not about attending church. This is about actually a relationship with God. We get together and encourage each other in that relationship. Just encourage you if you are seekers on the way. Keep on seeking. Keep on pursuing Him. And someday, perhaps, you can just step into that relationship yourself. If you are believers here, and if you have that relationship, the communion table is open through the next 4 songs. You're welcome to go and celebrate the Lord's Supper and reflect on what He has done for us. Church on the Rock, let us treat strangers as honored guests in the love of God. Heavenly Father, Thank you how you have treated us with honor as we've come into your family. Thank you for this church that just uplifts. Thank you for the community here, that we will pray for each other, that we will help each other. That is through your power, your refocusing. God, you are the one that all honor goes to. We love you. We worship you now in Jesus' name. Amen.